Sure, certainly. Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. Apologies for not being able to be there physically. I'm currently in Atlanta for a conference, so kind of multitasking here. But we'll get this business meeting of the commission started. We'll start by just recognizing members. So I see here on the Zoom, we have Vice Chair Marsico, Judge Daly, Judge McDermott, Representative Bonner. And then in the room, Matt, who do we have in terms of members joining us?
Yes, we have DA Bible, Judge McLaughlin, and Senator Street, and then our ex officio member, Chairman Fox.
Excellent. Okay, sounds like we've got a quorum of members. So we'll start off by recognizing if there are any members of the public for public comment.
Good morning,
Do you
Chairman
see anyone
Caducci.
waiting?
Yes, we do have an individual here for public comment.
Okay, great. He's here physically or on the Zoom.
He's physically here. He'll be sitting to my right, and if you're looking at me, maybe to your left.
Oh, yep. I see him. Hello, sir. Well, if you can start off by just giving us your name, and then you'll have the floor. I think we usually try to keep it to 5 to 7 minutes or so, for public comment. But you can go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Robert Veach. I'm from the Westmoreland County, Allegheny County area. I'm freezing up a little bit. The last time you guys were here was September 5th. And you guys you talked about everything that you talked about here. That same day, I sat at a gravestone and sang happy birthday to my daughter. My daughter was killed February 5th, 2023 by a drunk driver. And 22 months later, we finally received a sentence of 6 to 20, and that was by the grace of the judge who decided to run his sentencing consecutively. Otherwise, he probably would have been 3 to 10. And when I learned that, I was just heartbroken, and I feel like it wasn't enough. Now I understand this committee isn't the ones that make the rules and sign them off, but I understand that there are people here that can help. I feel like 3 to 10 for making a decision to get in a car and drive while you're drunk and kill somebody and leave them lie on the road. I don't feel that that's strong enough. And I feel that as a state, we're letting people down with a sentence like that, with a guideline like that. I believe that it needs to be reevaluated and taken a look at a little harder. I understand that my situation is what it is, and the guy that killed her, he's received his sentence. He's going to do his bid. But I want to make sure, as a member of the state with a voice, that not another family out there feels robbed the way my family does. And Bailey's great. She was a good kid. She was 16. She would have just celebrated her 18th birthday. And I'm here for her, speaking for her, for anybody else that has lost somebody in this kind of way. It's a tough road to walk down, and then we're left with a life of loss and a life of guilt and a life of shoulda, woulda, couldas. And in a few years, the people that commit these crimes are just walking out on the street, going home to their loved ones that we don't have anybody to come home to. My daughter was my best friend. It was me and her since she was 11. And she was my reason for waking up in the morning. Now today, she's still my reason to wake up, so that I can make sure that nobody else feels this way. And that's about all I have. I want to see this changed, and I'm open to hear anything that anybody has to say. I'm just trying to start a conversation. So I appreciate you hearing me. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And sorry, can you restate your name again for the record?
Robert Beach.
Robert. Thank you, Robert. Now I'll just say, I'm very sorry for your loss, and very much appreciate and commend your courage to come here and before the commission to share your story. I know that's a very vulnerable thing to do. And I know, I hope I speak for the commission here in saying that we definitely would like to, do what we can to just understand more about the case and the sentencing and see if that's a space of investigation on behalf of the commission.
I had one more. Can I add one more thing in?
Sure.
I did start a petition on change.org. It's change.org/justice for Bailey. And I started it on Monday or Tuesday, and a couple of days it's got over 4,000 signatures on it. And I feel that's worth noting. So all right, now that's
Thank you. Sure. If you can forward that along to the commission for our own purposes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Can I jump in here?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Judge.
Sir, I'm Judge McDermott. First of all, thank you for coming. And so you know, I do a lot of cases like your daughter from Philadelphia. And it is exceedingly painful to do those on a regular basis and to see the trauma that's inflicted on everyone. But I also want to point out that in some ways it's a legislative problem because the judges are constrained, and I think you understood this, by what we call the statutory maximum. So I don't know if you understand, and I was just going to take a minute or two, and if you tell me you know this, just tell me that you know all this. But generally, there's statutory limits on certain crimes, and then the guidelines, the commission has to fashion guidelines based upon those statutory limits. And within statutory limits, there's also mandatory minimums. But I can tell you that I've been doing this a long time. Some of the crimes, the mandatory minimums were enacted during my practice as a lawyer, and now I see them as a judge. And there's one or two crimes that the penalty has been enhanced. But understand that it is difficult when there's loss of life. And from a judicial perspective, and I think you alluded to this, there's only so much we can do. So what I'm saying is it's a two-pronged problem. But the immediate problem that I see from a victim's perspective and or for someone who thinks that the penalty should be higher is that the state legislature has to change the penalties. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all I wanted to tell you.
I do understand that, and that is my ultimate goal, is to get the legislature to change this. When I heard the sentencing, I immediately went to the internet and I saw that there was this meeting today, and I was like, I need to be there. I don't know why. My brain just said I need to be there. I need to make my voice known. And I need to, it was really crazy because as I said, like September 5th, your last meeting was my daughter's birthday. Today, December 12th, it would have been 18 years since I enlisted in the Navy. So it's like your meetings are hitting on key points in my life. And it was like something was telling me I needed to be here. So
I'd like to echo also what my colleague said, Judge McDermott. I'm Judge McLaughlin from the Superior Court. And I just want you to know how important it is that you do this, not only to honor your daughter, but I think it's very important. I always say that I never forget at any level that I'm at, that when I sign my name to something, I am affecting someone's life. It's not just the person that's before me. So just know that coming here in person does make a difference to this commission. Also, this commission is made up of legislators, judges, people from all walks of life that you need to hit. So thank you for making the trip from Westmoreland County and for sharing the story about your daughter. And her memory lives on because of the good work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wanted to offer condolences and thank you for sharing. I'm the sole legislator physically here, but Chairman Krajewski is also a member of General Assembly. We'll get the information from the staff and look into what changes the General Assembly needs to make to address your concerns.
Thank you.
Any other members that would like to comment?
Just very briefly. Sir, also want, and I know we briefly talked in the hallway, but I just again wanted to offer my condolences and to truly thank you for being here. I know how long of a drive that is. We're practically neighbors, and it definitely means a lot. It's very impactful to hear your story in person, and to actually see the person that it's really affected. And as Judge McLaughlin said, keep telling this story. You are the one keeping it alive, and this is how actual change is effectuated. So thank you again, and we're all terribly sorry for your loss.
Thank you for hearing me.
You. Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Beach, for your time and presence at today's commission meeting. Okay. So with that, I will pass it to Executive Director Matt to run us through the rest of your agenda. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. One more role for you, Representative, which is just approving the previous minutes, which
That's
are
right.
on pages 5 through 9.
I always forget that. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
I think that goes Judge McLaughlin, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second.
All right. Heard a second by Senator Street. All right. Minutes are approved. All right. And so next we'll move into executive update.
Okay, great. And I will postpone the ex officio updates till, oh, here comes the chairman now. So I'll just start by first thanking the chairman for his continued partnership with the parole board and with the commission, but most recently, and he could add on to this, of course, staff were able to accompany him on some efforts that the parole board is doing. And I'll again let him speak about that, but we visited 2 SCIs with the parole board. We went to Rockview and Benner over the last few weeks and really got to hear one from the parole board, but also to see how institutions work and meet the superintendents and get a tour of the facility. So.
Yeah, well, thank you for, it was really nice. We had both Matt and Ryan come to Benner and Rockview. We started a program, what we call Parole 101, where we talk directly. We meet with the inmate population. Incarcerated individuals get a chance to ask us questions. We talk about the parole process, how they can put themselves in the best position to be paroled. We talk about after parole, reentry services. We have individuals from our Bureau of Community Corrections there, our parole field staff. And so that has been a program that we've initiated over the last year. We've now hit, I think, 12, SCIs that we've now provided these presentations to. So we appreciate your interest and showing up and kind of hearing what we do. I guess the only other update, we have been working closely with the commission. We are very close. We now have statistics on our parole rates. We should be able to use the new guidelines and get good data around our parole rates, our departure reasons from the guidelines, and all that is being transmitted, and we are putting it together, working together to have a nice report actually for the commission coming up probably soon, probably the first half of the year. So that should be very helpful. We're seeing that we are complying with the guidelines in a really good way. I think it's about 80%, and that's just, I think, really a perfect spot for us to be. It does allow for some individual decisions outside the guidelines when there's good reasoning, but it also provides that the guidelines are a good basis that we should be following. So other than that, I don't have anything else, but I'll be available if anybody has any questions.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Fox. The next item for us to consider is a little bit of house cleaning related to our organizational chart. So on page 11 is our current organizational chart. And what's notable is that we have currently 4 vacancies. 2 of those positions have been, I'll say, historical vacancies that we haven't filled in 4 or 5 years. And then 2 are new departures. The first is our administrative and financial support manager, Jadine Reese, has left the commission after about 5 or 6 years. We'll talk later about our activities related to recruiting and filling that position. And the second is Rachel Pierce from the Education and Outreach Unit. As Bobby noted, she left to return back to the work with the federal system, and she did a amazing amount of work on our videos in a short amount of time that she was with us. But specifically, I want to talk about the 2 other vacancies first, and those 2 other vacancies are the staff support position in the Administration and Financial Support Unit and this communications specialist in the Education and Outreach Unit. As I noted, we'll start with the staff support position. That position was previously held when I began at the commission and has been vacant, as I mentioned, for 4 or 5 years. That position did a lot of work associated with preparing for these meetings when we were much more paper oriented, and these notebooks and meeting materials were being printed and compiled, as well as doing a number of tasks related to our data, looking up information that we have since automated. So what I'll be asking shortly after I describe the second position is actually to eliminate these 2 positions from our chart. One, because the functionality is not that important at the moment, but 2, given our fiscal concerns that we've talked about at many meetings, to try to be more efficient with our current staff and be fiscally responsible in terms of our requests to the legislature. The second position was actually never filled, and it's a communication specialist that we had interviewed on several different occasions to fill that position. And it really came out of the hearings related to the risk assessment work that the commission was doing. During that time period, social media was covering that activity. And at the time, our chair thought we had really no medium to respond to a lot of the criticisms and concerns that were happening on Twitter and other social media platforms. And as you know, that chair who brought this up is been gone there's been several chairs since. And we've also expanded, as you've heard, really our presence in a number of ways. We've developed this newsletter. We've developed the data snapshots. We're trying to communicate more directly with our core constituents and stakeholders and the public in different ways. So we feel, and speaking with the chair and the vice chair, that these positions, which have again been vacant for about 4 or 5 years, that they just be removed from our org chart, and we go from 24 staff to 22 staff as our full complement. So the other 2 vacancies I'll discuss in a moment that will be active. But so I'm seeking a motion, I guess, to update the organizational chart.
I so move.
I'll second.
Right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion's approved.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'll just note, and we'll get to the budget in a moment, but the first position was roughly, we would, this is a rough estimate of what would be posted, would be $50,000 before fringe, and then the second position was be posted at 65,000. So it's a quite significant savings for the commission budget. Just catch up to where I am. The next piece here is we're actively working on hopefully soon interviewing candidates for our administrative and financial support manager. That's a really important position for us because that essentially is our, for better or worse words, our chief financial officer who's responsible for interfacing both with Penn State, with processing our payroll, but also with the legislature and our banking accounts and paying our invoices and our vendors and so forth. So we're very fortunate that Jadine, who, as I mentioned, had been with the commission for a while, was willing to spend a couple weeks with Ryan and I and other staff on explaining what activities she does and how she does them so we can continue operations in her absence. But this will be a challenging position for anybody that we hire because it is complicated with working both with the legislature and also with Penn State in terms of accounting systems, that we feel it's necessary to engage with Jadine Reese in a very small contract to be available for onboarding assistant with our new administrative financial support manager. When Jadine was hired, which again was 5 or 6 years ago, the outgoing administrative assistant entered into a similar engagement with the commission through a short, small service purchase contract. So what I'm hoping is for a motion to engage with Jadine Reese for a service purchase contract not to exceed $5,000. I'm hoping for a motion in that respect.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion is passed.
Great, thank you. And as an informational matter, another thing, and I do want to thank Jadine for her service and her time with the commission. Modernized many of our processes and improved much of the functionality. She was also our office manager in State College, but she did a phenomenal job in those respects. And one of the roles that she played was being in charge of our audit. The commission is not legislatively mandated to do an audit, but historically we've done a fiscal audit. And so she was kind enough to meet with the folks doing the audit before her departure to make sure all the materials and information was shared with the audit team. So we hope to receive that audit prior to the March commission meeting, which we'll then share with the commission. Okay, the next action item relates to our budget, and this is on page 17. And I think this is somewhat pro forma, but it's worth just highlighting that this is asking the commission to approve a modified budget based on the 22 FTEs that were just approved as opposed to the 24. So on page 17, you'll see that the salaries for commission staff are reduced from 2.85 million to 2.7 million as a result of the removal of those two full-time equivalent positions. So we end up reducing our budget that was last approved at the September meeting from 3.86 million to 3.71 million. So seeking a motion again,
I so
some
move.
pro forma budget change.
I so move.
I'll second it, Judge Dowling.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. And I do want to just note one thing regarding our budget before we talk about next fiscal year's budget request. I think it's really just important to note that even with this amended budget, that our salary here is 2.7 million and that our flat funding appropriation has been 2.55 3 million for the last 6 years. So even with this modification to reduce our staff salaries, our salaries alone still outpace what has been our appropriation for the last 6 years. So we'll come to that. But as a starting point for activities related to that, the chair and I have visited staff in the governor's office to speak to them directly about our budget, what the commission does. We met with 2 individuals, the executive deputy secretary of policy and planning and the deputy secretary of legislative affairs since our last commission meeting, and talked to them about the need to increase the appropriation from the flat funding we've received over the last many years. So
Have you met with the legislative leaders?
we plan to meet again with them in the coming calendar year, starting in January. So Representative Krajewski and Judge Marsico and myself are coming up with a strategy to do that. Last fiscal year, we met with leaders from both sides, Democrat, Republican, and in the Senate and the House. Met with committee chairs, to no success. End of that to get an increase. So now I'll pivot then to the next item, which is on page 19. And page 19 is setting the baseline for our fiscal year 25-26. There's a typo at the top. My apologies. It should say July 1, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. You'll note that the new salaries that were just approved are our starting point for salaries. None of the other activities based on what historical practice have revealed have been adjusted. There is one item to note that Christy Bundro noted earlier, that we're really committed to the effort to build this CSRE to replace the SGS web. And as such, we have really earmarked the funding from JRI to that project. So we will be committed to $400,000, I think, this fiscal year, and $400,000 next fiscal year for that rebuild. But since we already have those funds, they're part of our operating budget, but they're not included in this snapshot here as a reflection. So this budget here also reflects 2 elements, one being the 2% increase of salary, which is consistent with what we've put into our budget requests in the past. And then it's worth noting, and I think this was covered at the December meeting, that to meet the demands of this year, given the smaller appropriation, again, that doesn't even meet the staff salaries, we will be draining our reserves. And so in this budget request, we're asking to refill or backfill those reserves. It's challenging to estimate the exact amount of the reserves that we're going to be using, but for now we're putting in the full amount. And just as a reminder, that reserve was set up, I believe, in 2015 in case of a budgetary impasse. And our math shows that it would cover salaries and no other activities for about 3 months, roughly, and used solely for the reserves. We're using it now for operating expenses, so we'll be asking to backfill those reserves just to have that for another rainy day. So I'm seeking a motion to have the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget to be $4.1 million.
Judge McDermott, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, before calling the vote, any comments or questions? All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing a majority, the motion passes. And with that, I will turn it over to the Senior Deputy Director, Ryan Myers, to provide additional update on the administration and outreach.
Thank you, Matt. 2 of the items that you see here on the agenda, we've already spoke about, so I won't reiterate them, but as Matt had mentioned, we visited SCI Rockview together, and I just wanted to thank the chair for giving us the chairman of the parole board to giving us the opportunity for that. That was a really great visit. And I had mentioned during the policy meeting where we stand on the annual report project updates. So my focus will be pretty short here, but to talk a little bit about our educational partnerships in terms of 3 MOUs that the commission has and activities of staff with these 3 universities. The commission historically has taught a course at Penn State University, an undergrad course, in both the fall and the spring. So I'm happy to let you know that the fall semester at Penn State, at least for commission staff and teaching, has come to a close. Hopefully another successful semester for our Penn State students. This fall, staff instructed a course at Duquesne Law School. The course at Duquesne is unique, I think, in terms of courses that are offered at various law schools, certainly throughout the Commonwealth, but also the country. And I appreciate both Professor Mystic and Professor Rego for their guidance and support in the commission's work there at Duquesne. The course covers corrections and sanctions and sentencing. It's sort of a seminar style, an elective course in which students get to review cases and sentence individuals in a similar way that we do with the Villanova Sentencing Workshop, but it's a small group of students. And what's really, I think, great and partly unique about that course is the students, because it's an elective, obviously they're choosing to be there, but many of them are already engaged in public defender offices or district attorney offices. And so they bring real world matters to the conversation in the classroom. And so we're wrapping that up here over the next week or so for finals for Duquesne Law School. And then lastly, I'll mention an MOU that we have with Villanova Law School. And I've talked about this in the past, but we're just getting ever closer to the Villanova Sentencing Workshop for 2025. And Professor Chanenson, a former commission member and chair, is the leader of the Villanova Sentencing Workshop. Staff of the commission support that and engage in the discussions. But I thought I would just take a moment to note that we're going to have several members of the commission join in the 2025 workshop, which will occur in 2 parts, one in February and one in March. It's been a practice, certainly of the commission, to invite commission members to participate in the Villanova Sentencing Workshop. And so we'll have DA Bible joining us next year. We'll have Judge McLaughlin joining us. We will also have Chairman Fox joining us as a representative from the parole board. And then lastly, not with us today, but we'll have Attorney Bolkovac joining us as our representation of the defense. And so we appreciate your participation in advance. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all out in the East at the Desmond in 2025. So I'll turn it to Bobby to go ahead and give an update on education and outreach, and we'll keep moving along. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, everyone. I have some brief updates for you on our activities. So first, I'll point to those of you that have the notebook handy. A lot of this information is going to be found first starting on page 21 of the notebook. Just talking through some of our activities. January through the end of October, we held 89 seminars, which totaled 133 hours and involved 2,472 participants. In addition to that, we also had, I mentioned earlier, a variety of reference materials have been published to the website. I believe I mentioned earlier about 28 documents are available on various topics, so really tangible and helpful information, and wanted to thank Maria Agello for her efforts in putting a lot of that information together for us. We've continued to work on our virtual seminars this year. We've done seminars on prior record score, SGS web updates incorporating the 8th edition sentencing guidelines, and then an overview of sentencing in PA have been our primary efforts. So wanted to thank Tiffany Smith, Jen Hutton, and Krista Rubin for those efforts in leading and facilitating a lot of those sessions. In addition to the recurring, we did have some intermittent opportunities to go in person to some counties, to some bar associations. So really working to maintain our outreach efforts with a variety of individuals. I mentioned during the policy meeting, our e-learning modules. We have those 3 out there for consumption. And I also mentioned some of the policy videos that we've been working on with Rachel Pierce before she departed, and hoping to get those published here in the next several weeks. From a technical assistance perspective, we've responded to 1,008 sentencing-related inquiries, responded to 66 inmate requests and 4 right-to-know requests. Right before our Thanksgiving holiday, Ryan and I had the pleasure of wrapping up our legislative lunch and learn series. We look forward to restarting that in March of next year. And finally, last couple updates. We released 3 newsletters since our last meeting in September. Those copies of those can be found on pages 7 through 11 on the supplemental materials. Ryan mentioned earlier our efforts in case law and legislative reviews. You can find those at page 2 and 3 of the supplemental materials. And the last note, I did send out a electronic update to the Education and Outreach Committee. If anyone's interested in seeing what we provided those updates, that could be found on pages 5 and 6 of the supplemental materials. With that, that kind of concludes my updates for everyone. If there are any questions, happy to answer.
Okay, I will now turn it over to Dr. Noah Painter Davis for an update on our ongoing research activities, including, of course, SR 196 and other activities by the unit.
Good morning, everyone. I'm first going to comment on our research partnerships. Longstanding graduate student research assistant Emerson Waite is graduating in the spring of 2025, and he will be leaving the commission this month to start a job at the Pennsylvania Prison Society as their research director. We thank him for all of his contributions to the research unit over the past few years. We are continuing our research partnership with Penn State, including working with postdoctoral student Nicholas Goldrosen on several studies using PCS data. We also continue our work with the Social Science Research Institute at Pennsylvania State University. In terms of interagency data sharing, two main updates, I won't speak on them long, is that SR 196 highlights our strong interagency partnerships. We were able to get this veterans identifier and do data analysis in a very quick time period, which would not be possible without those interagency partnerships. Interagency data sharing is also essential to the CASER development. The main thing I'd like to discuss are updates since the September commission meeting related to SR 196. Matt laid out our progress in terms of data. I'd like to update some other aspects of the study. PCS staff, we made a site visit to Allegheny County in September. Staff attended a session of the Veterans Treatment Court and interviewed several members of the Veterans Treatment Court team, including the judge, district attorney, public defender, and representatives from the county's Department of Human Services, among several others. We also interviewed a magisterial district court judge, 2 Court of Common Pleas judges, and the first assistant from the district attorney's office. The purpose of this visit was to inform many of the directives in the resolution, including assessing how and when veterans are identified in Allegheny County, the types of screening tools and assessments used to identify mental health and substance use issues among veterans involved in the criminal justice system, and the resources available via the VA. Also, staff developed and deployed a statewide survey to wardens of county jails on similar themes that were covered in the site visit in Allegheny County, identification, screening, etc. And we have received surveys from about 38 county jails so far, representing all areas of the state and the cross-county classes. The survey deadline is December 20th, at which point we will begin analyzing the results. PCS staff, we also made a site visit to State Correctional Institution Houtsdale to visit their Veterans Services Unit, and we met with Mike Carrington, the DOC statewide Veterans Coordinator, and a member of our SR 196 Advisory Committee. We learned about veteran identification processes, screening, and the resources they have to offer vets. PCS staff are also scheduled to make another site visit to Jefferson County in January to learn about processes and resources they have for veterans involved in the criminal justice system. We are also working on several sections of the final report that draw upon best practices when working with veterans involved in the legal system. These include, for example, best practices in identification, screening, assessments, and veterans treatment courts. As a next step, we're going to conduct one more site visit, likely to a Class 3 county on the east side of the state, and we're going to be deploying additional surveys to learn about identification, assessment, screening, and services, including a survey to president judges. We are also preparing for informational interviews of several subject matter experts, including veteran justice outreach officers, veteran court coordinators, staff at the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, and experts in post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. Last, we are assembling data and developing research plans to conduct additional statistical analyses, including analyses of the number of veterans who have been summoned to veterans treatment courts and analyses of recidivism. I'd like to pass it now to Christy Bundro, manager of the Application and Information Technology Unit.
Thanks, Noah. So the major focus for the applications and IT unit continues to be the development of the new CASER application, which will eventually replace SGS Web. I gave you guys a demo of that earlier today. As far as staffing, as announced in the last commission meeting, the Commission and InfoMatrix Corporation, which was the vendor helping with CASER application, mutually agreed to end their relationship at the end of July. And then instead of outsourcing to another vendor, unit staff is going to manage and execute the remainder of the project with support from independent contractors as needed. With the approval from the commission, we did sign a service purchase contract with Carbon Creek for a developer to supplement the unit's front-end development capabilities. That developer joined the project team in September, and so far that's been going very well. So we do have an action item seeking approval for a new contract with Carbon Creek to extend the developer for another 3 months once the original contract is done. So I'm not sure about the process here. Do I seek the motion for the approval of the service contract, or do I turn it over to somebody to do that?
Hey, I'm here again. Sorry, I missed some of the previous actions. So I can go ahead and jump in, Christy. Is there a motion to approve the purchase contract?
I'll make that motion.
Right. That's the first one. And is there a second?
I'll second it, Judge Daly.
Second by Judge Daly. Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion is approved.
Okay, thank you for that. The other thing I presented earlier was the timeline. So since we've had some significant changes in project staffing, we have revised the timeline for the project, which I also presented earlier. We now estimate that the application development and testing will be completed by September of 2026. And then after that development is complete, we'll spend a few months piloting the application with a few select counties before beginning the statewide rollout in 2027. In the supplemental materials that were emailed to everyone, there is a more detailed project plan if you would like additional information on those dates. Since the separation from InfoMatrix, the project team has been focused on addressing design and implementation challenges, as well as resolving outstanding technical debt in order to keep the project on track. So to this end, the project team completed work on several items like refactoring the offense details page to resolve technical implementation issues, redesigning the prior offenses page to incorporate user feedback and implement some key functionality modifications, revamping the add OTN, add offense, and add associated offense modals to enhance the user experience. We collaborated with JNet to configure the case event subscription integration, and we also integrated the CASER application in the JNet portal for single sign-on user access. While our focus has been on building the new CASER application, staff do continue to support and maintain the legacy SGS Web application. On September 9th, unit staff deployed several fixes and enhancements to the production SGS web application. So we addressed an issue where the sentence recommendation was not being adjusted properly for the sexual abuse of children enhancement in a certain scenario. And then we also corrected several formatting issues on the new 8th edition guideline forms and replaced security certificates to safeguard the application and its associated process. Before I wrap up, I did want to mention that in early November, staff did visit Dauphin County to observe some sentencing hearings and also to meet with court staff to learn more about their processes and use of SGS Web. It was incredibly informative, and we're using the knowledge to shape the new application. So I just wanted to thank Judge Marsico for hosting us and giving us that opportunity. And then to wrap up, I'll report that as of September 30th, almost 80,000 sentences have been submitted with 2024 dates of sentence. And that full report is also available in the supplemental materials that were provided. And unless there are any other questions, I will turn it over to Brett to give his update.
Brett, just give me 1 sec before you start. I wanted to just add to the context of the 80,000 sentences that were reported with dates of sentence in 2024. You know, keep in mind that the guidelines are prospective, so not all of those are obviously 8th edition offenses. And Christy was kind enough to give me some numbers for the policy discussion earlier, and I was remiss in providing those numbers to you. So now I see this as an opportunity just to say, you know, when we're thinking about how many cases are coming through, of the sentences of roughly of those 80,000 sentences for this year, approximately about 19,000 of those are with 8th edition offenses. So just to give you sort of a perspective on the number of the new 8th edition offenses that we are certainly seeing within SGS Web and that Bobby's unit is dealing with in terms of inquiries. So thanks, Chrissy.
Good morning, everyone. As you've already heard quite a bit about this morning, the unit's been very busy with SR 196 and studying veterans. So I won't go too deep into that, but I will just say one nice thing about getting these big assignments from the legislature is it gives an opportunity for the rest of the staff to kind of branch out and be involved in all different sorts of parts of these big projects. So we've got a lot of different things going on, as Noah highlighted. It's nice to be able to pull everybody in and we're all working on the same thing together. So with that, I'll just move on and highlight a couple of other tasks that the unit's been working on over the past few months. So at the September meeting, I highlighted our new initiative called Sentencing Data Snapshots. And these essentially are kind of like little bite-sized reports. Like maybe we take one of our 100-page reports and turn it into maybe a 4 or 5 page graphic heavy, easy to read narrative. So our first one was released in September on PWIDs with marijuana. And just a couple of weeks ago, we released our second edition, which was based on the short sentence parole evaluation that we conducted last year. So the data snapshot highlights some of the key benefits that we found with the short sentence parole program. Some of those being reduced misconducts for participants in the program. The participants are released right around 3 months earlier than they would have been had they gone through the traditional parole process. And then we're also seeing between the Department of Corrections and the parole board, there's a savings of approximately $2.75 million annually. So overall, the program's been a big success. And actually, we have a second follow-up evaluation scheduled for 2025. So we'll dig more into that program. And then we'll have a new topic for our data snapshots for the first quarter of 2025, possibly something related to the veteran project, since we are dug in so deep at this time on veterans. And then just wanted to highlight the fact that over the course of 2024, we've really re-engaged with the parole board. We've worked a lot at looking at the initial results from the first year of using the parole guidelines. As the chairman mentioned, we've had excellent success in terms of conformity, over 80% conformity rate with the guidelines. And as we move on, we'll be looking to recalibrate the guidelines and begin doing more data reporting on the results of these guidelines as time moves on, to look at some of the outcomes, recidivism results, things of that nature over the next year or two. In addition, DOC will be transitioning from their prior risk assessment, LSIR, which is utilized as part of the parole recommendation, and they'll be switching to the strong R risk assessment. So as that transition occurs at DOC, that will also give us an opportunity to make that switch in the guidelines, and then give us a chance to sort of recalibrate, make any adjustments necessary to the parole guidelines at that point, which is looking like it might be maybe closer to 2026 at this point. And then finally, I just want to note that we continue to share our data, our extensive data, with many different external partners. Over the last quarter, we've shared data with members of the legislature, private attorneys, and then external researchers from Clemson University, Carnegie Mellon, Boston University, and Yale, just over the past quarter. So with that, I'll end my comments and answer any questions. All right, I'll send it back to Matt.
So I just want to add a couple things from what Brett said. In the supplemental materials, that the latest data snapshot can be found on page 29. But I also just wanted to highlight this draft quarterly parole report that Brett referenced is on page 44 of the supplemental materials. And I want to highlight the word draft. We shared some preliminary, really was an opportunity for us to design a template for a format of the report using some preliminary data. And we plan to update that in the coming months and share that with the parole board with a couple modifications, not just in design, but of course, updating the data and making sure that it's the right information and in the way that will be usable for the parole board to continue to make decisions. Additionally, I just want to highlight two things for 2025, but first on Senate Resolution 196, I think it's clear, or it should be clear to the commission, the amount of work that staff is devoting to this. Maybe 2 full-time staff every day are working on this project. And I'm thankful that the legislature extended the original legislation from 6 months to 15 months. And as been noted earlier, thanks to all our justice partners, local jurisdictions for agreeing to participate in site visits and helping us in that investigation. And then as if we're not busy enough, in 2025, we have 2 additional mandated studies that Brett's unit will be kicking off. The first is to validate the sentencing risk assessment tool. So we've been working with Christie's unit to collect that information to get a sample that we can take a look at the predictive validity of the risk assessment tool. And then we also have a mandate to conduct an additional evaluation of short sentence parole. Those earlier investigations, if you might remember, and that's covered in that snapshot, we only had a pretty limited follow-up period of individuals for 18 months when looking at recidivism. This will allow us to expand that to 2 to 3 years for many of the people who've been released on SSP, to see how comparable individuals released from the Department of Corrections compared to that population. So Brett's unit will be incredibly busy, but really focused on those 3 activities in 2025. So with that, I'll turn it to Ryan for a very brief policy update.
Thank you, Matt. And during the policy meeting earlier this morning, spent much more time talking about this. So I thought just to orient you to the information that's provided by staff in the commission's supplemental section of the notebook. If you go to page 54 through 68, you'll find a listing. Let me get the wording right here, an enacted legislation listing, and that's the bills that staff have tracked throughout the 23-24 session. You'll also see several documents that are enacted bills or summaries of enacted bills, and these are specific to those bills. And this is a representation of what staff do internally to identify whether a bill applies to the work of the commission, and then specifically what areas does it impact. Is it offense gravity scores? Is it a sentencing enhancement? And then you'll see information where it will tell you what the existing offense would be and what the modified offense might look like. If it's a completely new offense, you'll see the omnibus offense gravity score information there. So the enacted bill summaries are for the ones that have occurred since September, since September's meeting. And then lastly, you'll also see an offense listing, and this is a summary document that we post on our website for any new or modified offenses for practitioners to reference so that they can see, this is a new offense. Here's what the offense gravity score would be. So I just wanted to orient you to all of that, and I'll spare you repeating myself about all the work that's been done for monitoring the implementation of the 8th edition guideline. So thank you. I'll turn it back to Matt.
Great. And before we get to our final agenda item, which is approving the dates of the 2025 commission meetings dates, I just wanted to express a little bit of thanks to the commission staff. I think, again, it's clear about the volume of work and the quality of work and how incredible our team is that does this every day, sharing information, analyzing policies, collecting data, analyzing that data, and so forth. I think it's notable to say that this is coming to the end of the first year of my term as executive director. So this last year has been a time of transition for staff. We also have added a new deputy director. So we not only have new guidelines, but we have new leadership. And I think, and I hope that you agree that there's been continuity of operations at a very high level, and that we continue to provide a valuable service to the Commonwealth. And I'd also like to thank all the commission members for your support and during that transition, but also in all of our activities. And I think the commission is at a strange crossroads here in regards to its budget. We were able to rely on the reserves this year to continue our work. Next year, next fiscal year, if things continue the same, we will be faced with really challenging times. And so I look forward to working with commission members on getting advice, developing some strategies, but also working with the legislature and our legislative members and seeing how we can secure the appropriate budget that allows us to continue to operate in a way that we do and to do all these diverse activities, which include, of course, receiving mandates from the legislature to conduct a lot of evaluations and activities. When you take a look at our budget, as I've mentioned in the past, about 80% to 90% of that budget is fixed on commitments to salaries and other activities. We don't have a lot of room to cut activities, even though we do have things, of course, like we have to pay for our software. We have to pay for all kinds of things that are just infrastructure, travel, all the training and engagement that Bobby's noted, the software that's involved in e-learning, et cetera. So we're hoping that we could become whole again in the next fiscal year. But again, I appreciate all the support of the staff and the commission members and want to wish you happy holidays before we get to this last agenda item. So the last item for consideration is the calendar, and that can be found on page 36 and 37 of your notebook. And I'll just note that our enabling legislation calls for the commission to meet 4 times a year. And historically, we've met March, June, September, and December. Staff circulated a survey, so we wanted to make sure we picked the dates that were best for members. And collectively, those dates are in March 19th and 20th, June 11th and 12th, September 10th and 11th, and December 3 and 4. And so I will turn it to the chair to seek a motion for approval of those meeting dates for 2025.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the 2025 schedule?
I so move.
So, all right. So I heard a moved by Senator Street. Do we have a second?
Second, Judge
Second.
Marshall.
All right, second, Judge Marsico. All right. The schedule is approved.
Great.
Oh, sorry, all those in favor. Sorry. Yeah, my apologies. All those in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Got to brush up on my Robert rules. Okay. All right. The motion is approved.
And I'll again turn it to you, Chair, to see if there's any additional comments from members and then to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Are there any parting thoughts or comments from members before we adjourn this business meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. I see a motion by Senator Street. Do we have a second?
A second.
I will. All right. There's a second. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All opposed? Okay. All right. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. I hope everyone has a happy holiday.
Thank you.